Hey, can we just talk real quick about the phrase Red Sea? Because you have some great discussions about this. Something as simple as the phrase Red Sea is subject to so many different interpretations. Some of them probably more valid than others. Talk to us a little bit about this term that we take for granted, how it's not that clear what it means, or at least there's a
Yeah,
lot of different opinions and scholarship about what it
right,
means.
right. So it goes back to Hebrew, right? I mean, when Moses
Hmm.
was writing, he wrote Yam Suf, Yam
Right,
meaning sea.
right.
The question is what is Suf? And one of the things that we do know, and that I've learned about, is that the Hebrew group is going to say every time this Hebrew word Yam Suf is used,
Hmm.
when it's used to identify the geographical location,
Yeah,
it's always associated with the Gulf of Aqaba. When
hmm,
Moses is writing and God tells him what the boundary of Israel is, it's Yam Suf,
right.
and that's the Gulf of Aqaba. It's the southern border of Israel. And then when Hezekiah and King Solomon are referencing it, they had a fleet of ships on Yam Suf. So
Hey,
this is
can
how
I
it's
read
told.
that verse? So it's First Kings 9:26.
Yeah,
Um, and King Solomon made a fleet at Etzion Gever, which is near Elot, and today we
Elat,
call
yeah,
it's in the Bible it actually says Elot, but today that's
Elot.
referred to as Elot. On the edge of the sea of the Yam Suf in the land of Edom, in the land of Edom. So that's interesting. So there's no question whatsoever. This couldn't be something that today is in the roughly the area of the Suez Canal. In other words, we have the two branches of the Red Sea, the Gulf of I might be backwards for the audience, but one of them is the one on the left is the Gulf of Suez, and the other you referred to in the movie as the Gulf of Aqaba. In Israel, we call it
Mm-hmm.
Mifratz Eilat, the Gulf of Eilat. It's like the two branches that go like this of the Red Sea, and in
Yeah,
between them is the supposed Sinai Peninsula, or the so-called Sinai Peninsula. So a lot of your video, a lot of your movie is dealing with this question of which of these two branches, and is it even the sea itself, or is it some other body of water? So, it's interesting. You brought up something I hadn't really thought a lot about, how the Greek translators translated it. So I did a little bit of digging, and I found that so the phrase there is thalassa, which
yeah.
is literally Red Sea. And Herodotus, the Greek historian, uses that term, and he writes, now in Arabia, not far from Egypt, there is a gulf extending inland from the sea called Red. The Arabian Gulf of which I shall speak extends from the south towards Syria. So he describes this Arabian Gulf, meaning it's a gulf that runs along the coast of Arabia, and it comes in from the Red Sea. And there he's talking about the Red Sea. He's including the Indian Ocean, as well as the Persian Gulf.
Right.
Um, so he basically is describing the Gulf of Aqaba or the Gulf of Eilat. Sounds to me at least like.
Yeah.
Now he might not have known there were two different seas there, right? That's possible, and you bring that up.
So what you're suggesting is that there's a crossing in these border lakes right here. How did you come up with that?
Well, it all began by my interest in this very famous depiction on the walls of Karnak Temple, which show the Pharaoh Seti I, who was the father of Ramses II. And what we have here is a 3,300-year-old road map containing the forts from Egypt's frontier, depictions of forts and their names stretching across northern Sinai all the way to the land of Canaan. This shows us water. We have pictures of lakes. We have pictures of reeds growing out here, but all of this is desert today.
The reeds depicted on the Karnak inscription connect well with the popular Sea of Reeds definition for Yam Suf.
Well, I think what we're saying
Yeah.
is that the Gulf, there's a Gulf of the Red Sea
Hmm.
called Aqaba, and then there's a Gulf of the Red Sea called Suez. They
Correct.
extend like rabbit ears, as it
Right.
were, uh,
Yep.
and uh, and so the question of Red Sea, because later on we hear the word Sea of Reeds. And now, what I understand is that the Greeks, it was called a reedy sea, the
Yeah.
Greeks actually had about 20 different words for vegetation that they could have used. They could
Okay.
have called it Sea of Reeds,
Hmm.
but they didn't. They
Yeah.
called it the Red Sea.
Yeah.
So there's a clue that they realized that this wasn't just a shallow lake,
Right.
3 to 6 or 7 feet deep on Egypt's border, that this was actually a sea. And that's the reason why the Septuagint, when it was translated, went from Yam Suf to Red Sea. And
Yeah. So
that's something to think about.
So I have a hypothesis here that I'm just throwing out, and I don't, it requires further investigation. But I read you that verse from 1 Kings 9:26, and it
Yeah.
referred to the Yam Suf in the land of Edom. Edom means red. So it's very possible that when they said Red Sea, that, let's say, the translators of the Septuagint, who were these Jewish rabbis in Alexandria, that they were saying, oh, the sea, the Idumean Sea, that is the sea of the land of red.
Yeah,
Right?
of Edom,
So
or Edom.
Edom, or
Yeah.
so it's possible. I don't know. And it was a term that already existed. That's for sure. Meaning it existed in
Yeah.
the context of Herodotus referring to the sea. He actually talks there, Herodotus, how he thinks there was another sea that got filled in by the by the Nile, and it just goes to show what a limited knowledge of geography they had back then. We take it for granted that we can pull up Google Maps and that everybody, surely if he's in Egypt, he would know. I wouldn't assume that at all, right? He might not know it's down the road,